On May 14, 2022, I returned to the forest to place trail cameras. The last time I was here was December 25, 2021. In the previous year, I had learned a lot about the wildlife patterns in this area, and I had some very specific locations and setups planned for trail cameras with the idea of learning the patterns in more detail. I began my hike around 9,400 feet, and my planned route would take me to a maximum elevation of about 10,600 feet. As my hike progressed higher and further into the White River National Forest, I began to come across snowdrifts, the last remnants of the long winter. Defiantly, they clung to the mountain in shady areas in the bottom of the drainage and on the north slopes where their depth and protection from the sun allowed them to go on a few weeks longer than the rest of the snow at these elevations. While the snowpack at higher elevations above the tree line, which is at about 11,800 feet in this area, will persist well into summer. As I hiked, I kept a keen eye on my surroundings, looking for any sign of recent wildlife activity. The only fresh tracks that I could see were moose tracks. I've noticed that moose will stay all winter. I attribute this primarily to two characteristics of these domineering creatures: their tall stature and their preference for browse as their primary source of nutrition. Elk have a stature that approaches moose. However, the diet of elk is dominated by grassy forbs. Mule deer's diet falls somewhere between that of elk and moose, yet the mule deer lacks the stature of both the moose and the elk. For this reason, the deer are the first of the three that are driven out of this country by winter snow, and they are the last to return in the spring. The deer, although they can sustain themselves to a large extent on browse, become incapable of escaping predators when the snow levels approach 2 feet. In the mountains, on the leeward sides of slopes, a few feet of snow quickly turns into 4 or 5 feet of snow due to drifting. These are impassable barriers for the deer, and they know this. So as the first snows accumulate to around 12 to 18 inches, they will migrate to lower elevations and south-facing slopes. Healthy elk, which I have seen easily step over fallen trees, the trunks of which stood 2 feet off of the ground, are not compromised to their predators with only 2 feet of snow. However, their dependence on grassy forbs as their main source of sustenance urges them to move on when it becomes too difficult to paw away the snow to get the required forage below. Although I'm always excited to find fresh animal sign, that day I was reassured by only finding moose sign. It indicated that I was achieving the first part of my objective, which was to have cameras in place before the deer and elk had returned to the area. The second part of my objective was to place multiple cameras, creating a redundant coverage over a greater range of the wildlife's regular travel routes, in an attempt to better understand their behaviors and habits. On July 11th, I returned to the area to change out the memory cards from the cameras, for the first time since setting them out. The observations that I will describe here is from this period of time and the first of this series. May 16th, 2 days after I set the trail camera, a moose approaches following my track. Here you can see it pushing its nose into each and every footprint I left in one of those last remaining snowdrifts. Their smell is amazing. I wonder what information the scents they smell must convey to them. I have noticed several times that I have hiked through the snow and then returned a few days later to hike the same area, that either moose, elk, or both had followed my trail. I've often wondered what causes this. Is it because I broke a trail through the snow and they want to take advantage of the trail that I broke? Or is it something more to it? Is the beast investigating who and what the human invader is doing in its domain? The image of this moose investigating my tracks only makes the question more intriguing. A demonstration of how fast the weather conditions change in the mountains. Here you can see the slight snowdrift remaining in front of the camera on May 15th, and by May 19th all of the snow is melted. Up till now, bear has been the only wildlife returning from its winter hiatus. And suddenly, on May 21st, there was a snowstorm that lasted about 24 hours and blanketed the entire area with over a foot of snow. As it happens, this will be the last snow of the season, and it will take several days for this snow to melt. On May 29th, the mule deer makes its first appearance. I have to wonder, did the deer anticipate the sudden snowstorm on May 21st? I'm suspecting that the doe here has been investigating the heavy cover that is behind this trail camera for a suitable spot to give birth. The location of this camera was chosen specifically for this reason. It's a narrow corridor that leads into and out of an area of very heavy cover that is used for bedding. Later in the year, I believe that I will see this bedding area used by a mature buck, but right now it's the domain of this doe as she prepares to give birth to her fawns. You will notice that each time she's leaving the heavy cover as she seeks out forage, first to rebuild her strength from the long winter and later to keep up with the nutritional demands of her feeding newborn fawns, that she pauses here, cautiously watching, listening, smelling, until she believes that all is right. And then slowly, still with caution, with her tail down, she will proceed to a more open, grassy area to feed on the nutrient-packed sprouts of spring grass. She will teach this same behavior to her fawns when the time comes. It is the wisdom of her experience that she will pass on to them, and it will serve them well. Right now, it will serve them best to protect them from the bears which have very keen smell and are frequenting the area. And I must imagine they know that there are or soon will be fawns in this area. The doe must hide them well and take every precaution not to reveal their location. She needs to leave them alone so that she can venture out to eat grass. For now they must remain hidden, and she needs to keep up her strength in order to supply them with her nutrient-rich milk. After a few weeks have passed, the fawns have become strong and agile enough that the doe is ready to introduce them to the wider world. Although she will only bring the fawns along on her daylight excursions, and her range will be constrained to grassy forage areas protected by trees and bordered by heavy cover, these outings will allow the fawns to stretch their stride, strengthen their muscles, and build their speed. This critical phase is driven by their youthful and playful spirit, but their mother will also use this opportunity to teach them how to proceed from their bedding area with caution and wisely to avoid danger. As the fawns become stronger and smarter, the doe carries on quite comfortably, foraging during the daylight hours as the fawns play. They follow her lead and observe her behavior. As their skills improve, she gives them more responsibility, allowing the fawns to lead the way from the bedding area, letting them test their wariness and caution as she looks on and follows them from behind and provides a nudge of reassurance when necessary. Interesting, isn't it? The resemblance of their behavior to that of their mothers. It's uncanny. There are more interesting observations to be made and things to learn. I'll continue this series as more footage is available. If you enjoyed the content and would like to see more, please let me know by giving it a thumbs up. Click subscribe and ring the bell so that you'll be notified when new content is uploaded. Thanks for watching.